all led by women. The special counsel's interview with the president would be done as part of their wide-ranging investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, according to 3 sources familiar with the matter. This comes as the president and his team has repeatedly attempted to undermine the credibility of the investigation, most recently calling it a total hoax. That happened just this weekend. For more, I'm joined by Kristen Welker, White House correspondent for NBC News, and Nick Ackerman, partner at Dorsey Whitney and former assistant special Watergate prosecutor and an NBC News legal analyst. Kristen, to you first on your awesome reporting. You just got official reaction because you and I spoke a couple of hours ago and the White House hadn't said anything.
That's right. One of the president's legal team members, John Dowd, just responding. My colleague Hallie Jackson got this. Let me read you that response, Steph. John Dowd saying the White House does not comment on communications with the OSC out of respect for the OSC and its process. The White House is continuing its full cooperation with the OSC in order to facilitate the earliest possible resolution. That last part of the statement, Steph, is the most significant part because that is the focus for the president's legal team. They want this investigation, this probe, to be wrapped up as quickly as possible. And we don't have a real sense about timing, but here's what I can tell you. According to 3 sources familiar with the matter, talks are underway between the president's legal team and special counsel investigators. Those talks include a discussion about what a potential interview between the president and Robert Mueller or his team might look like, the time, the scope of it, the legal parameters of it, the duration of it, and the president's legal team also considering a range of options, including compromises that would include the possibility of answering written questions or even, according to one source, submitting an affidavit. Important to stress, Steph, that these talks are preliminary and they are ongoing. So again, we don't have a clear sense of the timeline about how this is all unfolding. We can tell you, though, that President Trump was asked directly about this over the weekend while he was at David, would he, in fact, meet with special counsel Robert Mueller and his team personally if he was asked to do so? The president said yeah, and then quickly reiterated something that we've heard from him very vigorously in the past, which is that there has been no collusion between the president's campaign and the Russians. It wasn't clear if that yeah was a definitive answer to the question or if it was an acknowledgement of the fact that the question had been asked. So my colleagues and I, Hallie and Peter, will be out on the South Lawn shouting president's questions at the president today when he departs for Nashville. That's when he's going to be speaking at a farming event, Steph, and we'll try to drill down on some of those questions.
All right, stay with us, Kristen. I want to bring Nick in. Nick, why would President Trump ever testify? I mean, he thinks this thing is an absolute hoax. If you were his legal representation, you wouldn't want him to.
No, I'd have him take the Fifth Amendment. There is no upside to him testifying, except for the fact there's a political reason. He's already stated on the record in front of reporters that he would testify, just like James Comey testified under oath.
But he has said a lot of things.
Right, he says a lot of things, but that's his problem. I mean, he is the president of the United States. For him not to testify fully in this particular investigation, I think leads to the obvious political inference that he's guilty. I mean, there'd be no reason for him not to testify otherwise. Now, if he was a normal client of mine, no way would I ever let him testify. I would have him take the Fifth Amendment.
Okay, Kristen, there is no insult in here. President Trump is anything but normal. He is a guy who likes to speak for himself. He said it over and over on the campaign trail, I and I alone. Couldn't one make the case? President Trump is going to want to speak for himself. He doesn't listen to anyone else. He won't necessarily believe that his legal representation can do it for him.
And he's been asked about this in the past, Steph. Summer, for example, would he be willing to testify? And he said 100%. Now, that was specifically in response to some of the claims that were made by former FBI Director James Comey. So, again, we need to circle back with him. But you bring up an important point. What does the president think about all of this? We don't know. And, frankly, we don't know if he is read in on these conversations that are taking place at this point. As far as we understand, based on the sources that we've been speaking to, these conversations are between his legal team and investigators, but do not necessarily involve the president himself, Steph.
All right, then, Nick, if the president and his legal team are willing to respond to Mueller's questions in written form or an affidavit, couldn't that be better for Mueller than the president pleading the fifth? It's more information rather than less.
No, because it's just going to be a written lie. I mean, he's going to do the same thing he did with Don Jr.'s statement, the same thing he did with Kushner's statement.
But Don Jr.'s statement may open the president up for obstruction of justice.
Of course, but he's the president of the United States. If he doesn't testify, the inference is he's guilty. He has got to testify. There's a unique dynamic in this kind of a case. The same thing happened in Watergate. There is no way a political figure who's trying to hold on to his power can just clam up and take 5. He can't do it. If he does, that is politically disastrous for him. If this is really the witch hunt he claims it is, if he claims there was no conspiracy between his campaign and the Russian government, he's got to put his mouth where his money is. I mean, he's got to get in there and testify.
Well, good luck. We don't know where his money is. We've never seen his taxes. Kristen, another unusual circumstance. Today, the president is headed down south to Tennessee for a duo of appearances, first in Nashville and then going to Georgia, Atlanta. What can we expect from him? I can't get my mind off of Air Force One. Bob Corker is going to be joining him, and it wasn't that long. Bob Corker referred to the White House as an adult daycare center.
Right, but Bob Corker has supported many of President Trump's policies. He backs them. Look, the president on the ground today when he gets to Nashville is going to talk about how his tax plan, which Bob Corker supported, will help the farming community. He's also going to talk about how some of his deregulation moves have helped the farming community. So I think he's going to be taking a victory lap in that sense. And remember, this is a chance for the president to go back to rural America, the communities that helped put him here in the White House.
Well, if he's talking deregulation to the farming community, it will be to a friendly audience. They welcome those remarks. They welcome deregulation. It is good for their business in the short term. All right, Kristen Welker and Nick Ackerman, thank you so much. We're going to leave it there.
Thanks,
President Trump and his advisors, they're on the defense, which is a common position for them, but specifically after fire and fury broke out. You know, I'm talking about the new book, the president taking to Twitter, reminding us that he is, quote, like really smart. Those are his words. Many are asking the question, is he fit for office? And this just didn't start when the book came out. Remember, the first day of 2018, 16 tweets, one including the size